All right, we got everyone. Great. It worked. It worked. Technology. Well, I want to thank you guys for joining me. This is kind of our first segment that I wanted to start where each week I want to do a live demo with a company that I've either worked with or looked at their product service. And, I've met Chip a few years back. I think the software platform that they have with Trak software is great for small companies like most of my teams have been, all the way up to large scale organizations. So we're going to spend probably about an hour, maybe a little longer, just going over the system. We've got some special guests with Chip and I. But Chip, thanks for joining me. Why don't you introduce yourself, a little background on yourself and Trak real quick.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for joining. It's certainly been a crazy year right now, but good news is we all get to figure out these virtual ways of getting together and collaborating and staying in touch and, helping each other out a little bit. So props to you, Andrew, for setting this up. We're excited to be here. And really kind of get into, how Trak's helping the ecosystem and bringing in some all-stars into the show here as well to feature in this. So with that said, Andrew, I want to go ahead and share my screen if you can see it, and we can jump right into, how we help everybody in this ecosystem and, a little bit about me. As we look at my USL screen here, but common theme today. I don't know if you can see my jersey, but I've got Sasquatch. This is, I figured 2020, right? Sasquatches, it's time for them to get their due right now, right?
There's probably been a sighting or something by now, I would think. So
yeah, let's just validate it, right? That's a whole different can of worms here, but showing support for our longtime partners in sporting Kansas City. This is their SK2 USL team here. As I show the backdrop of our screen here, we're partners with the USL, 11 or 12 of the teams as well. We've got, as we get into things here, David Vedder from the property side, who's represented St. Louis FC, sadly sunsetting here as, in the next couple of weeks. So David's going to bring his perspective in from the USL side and certainly Major League Soccer, where he's spent a lot of time as well. We also have Hilary Goldberg, who joins us from the agency side and the brand management side to talk about how she's used Trak, specifically kind of in her workflows and how she kind of pushed it from start to finish and created some great results. About me a little bit, I came from the property side, spent a lot of time, in organizations and really, got a feel for, how things are done and saw a need for solutions that help people collaborate better. We're in this business to help partner relationship management. So whether you do sponsorship or not, certainly that's been our expertise and background, but hopefully this will be helpful for you as it relates to account management and all the complexities and the work involved in getting things from start to finish. And what we do is kind of a novel thing 5 years back when we started in this was provide visibility throughout the life of the partnership. So everything's on demand, how you need it, when you need it, etc. We're going to touch on some of these key dynamic abilities during this pandemic that we've all been facing in terms of, how do we get more digital? How do we get more, remote centric and help people out who are stuck in their closet or their bedroom trying to, fight their pets away while, trying to get the job done ultimately. So along those lines, some key themes here in terms of what we do with Trak and how it helps folks from a benefits perspective. Having everything in one place, which is really the goal of our system, is so central to kind of what we do. So along with that, real-time collaboration, deadline reminders. So this is the automation factor that we've built into this here that helps everybody out and gets them out of the weeds a little bit more. Comprehensive view of activation tasks and timeline. Certainly data-driven activation decisions and data ownership here. So we're helping pull folks from being reactive and event by event or game by game, assuming that we're back into our slate of doing these again, to being more proactive and strategic. Certainly the dynamic progress tracking. We'll touch on make good or added value tracking live and how folks can dynamically manage the changes that happen, considering like everyone's got a contract, but how many of those contracts are still in play right now as they were initially signed? Certainly the brand and agency folks, this came from a client of ours thinking of us as sponsorship insurance. A lot of folks are being great players and great partners out there, but there's the anomalies that said, this is a good time for us to try to get out of the contract. We help with that kind of attrition proofing and help you show that you've done the work. You've checked off the boxes, if you will. And you can validate your partnerships internally with leaders, externally at any time, brand and leadership approved. And then certainly we're bringing in best practices and alignment from all these different spaces, be it our clients in 12 different leagues in North America, certainly the agency and the brand side. Knowing what others are doing, how they're doing it, allows for a better ecosystem that's really on top of things that way. So with that said, Andrew, I'm going to shift over to our presentation that we created in our platform. Another shout out here, we've got Monumental Sports as a client. Their most recent championship just happened, Wizards District Gaming. So giving a shout out to WGG, taking home the 2K championship here, maybe a month or so ago, as we get into things here. So, and then as I kind of alluded to, guys, traditionally, and this is 99% big or small, the workflow situation has been one where you're managing a bevy of spreadsheets. You've got multiple people with their own processes. You've got a shared drive that can be super messy. Everything is disconnected. Systems don't speak to each other, super time intensive. You're spending tons of time sorting through and finding things. And certainly there's a loss of data if someone leaves or a file gets deleted. So we're helping with the organization and putting everything in one place, simplifying how it gets done, helping partners get what they need as indicated from IEG. Every year almost, brands need help with the ROI and ROO side, and they need help justifying their partnerships, right? The post-event reports and fulfillment audits. So trying to pull people out of the grips of inconsistencies and apologetic reactive performances and underperformance to this new standard of dynamic and manageable, cloud-based, results-centric here. And then
I'm sold already, Chip. I mean, I'm used to these spreadsheets, and I'm thinking, damn, how many times have we dropped the ball or done something? I'm sold. So, okay, keep going. Sorry.
I appreciate it, Andrew. Yeah, spreadsheets are free. We're all accustomed to them, but believe it or not, there is a better way to get things done, which hopefully you guys will kind of learn as we get into this a little bit. But, step by step, we really try to be every step in the process, if not close to it, or we can build it, when it comes to your job and your role, so that you could be a rights holder who's starting off by trying to sell partnerships to launching them, the intake, the documentation, the performance, the data, insights, and analysis. And then presentations. What do we do this year? Traditionally, PowerPoint, big clunky files that take long time to create. What we do is we give the notion to do strategy, execution, analysis in one place. With brands and agencies, this could start with proposal submissions and figuring out who you want to work with based on your strategy, inputting your valuation metrics, and then pushing through intake, documentation, performance, that analysis, and then presentations as you need them. So that's kind of the crux of this and the story that will kind of resonate throughout this. And just know, maybe if it's the meat and the potatoes, but not every fine point, hopefully it's still going to be beneficial in terms of closing the loop and helping you do a lot more with a lot less potentially. And then about us, guys, we've been around since 2015, been super helpful for folks in the space. In terms of survey results that come back, you see a quote from our friend David Vedder as well right here, and how he used it at St. Louis, Department of Two, by the way, with a few interns, game ops, selling, partnership marketing. As mentioned, we work with folks all over the map, 12 different leagues plus. Anyone that needs some bandwidth and some strength and some transparency and collaboration, we can essentially help you out. Look at some of our clients here, one place to collaborate for all those key players in the mix, big or small. So in a nutshell, guys, result-wise, we're going to help automate a lot of the dirty work. So you can truly spend a lot more time with the highest value activities you can come up with. Managing the entire portfolio in one place, maximizing the value of it, justifying it, etc., instead of the version wrangling, the reactive kind of behind the scenes stuff that's usually disconnected. So with that said, guys, that's kind of the layout as far as kind of our intro slides here. I'm going to go ahead and transition our story, and I'll actually log out here just so you can set the table together here. But our fun environment involves Mighty Ducks. I don't know if everyone remembers the movie from back when. I know I was a kid and it was a favorite. Lived in Minnesota twice, actually. So the Ducks played a role in my life growing up. So we have some fun with this environment here. But just know this link is for anybody you want to that can access this. So be it a client, someone on the marketing team, this is your portal. It's branded with your branding, and I'm logging in as myself right now into this Ducks account.
When you log in there, Chip, you said you can be, agency, you could be team, brand. Everyone doesn't see everything, right? I mean, can you kind of dictate what people can see in there?
That's a great question, Andrew. So the advantage of buying Trak is you're owning not only the data, but the processes involved and the configuration. We kind of become an extension of your team. And you could be a one-person consultant. You could be a brand agency, a team or a multi-rights holder. And yes, you can include the other folks and permission control who can kind of see what. And with that said, I'm going to go ahead and start. So this will feel like a lot of the social media sites that you're accustomed to using. So, be it LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, your profile's up top right, and then notifications. So I touched on the automation behind this. This is really the crux to everything here in this central kind of platform that quarterbacks your operations behind what you're doing. So every person with a login can go ahead and update when they want to get notified about items here. So whether that be accounts that get created or updated, tasks, comments, files, if I'm in the weeds, like in this case I am, I want to see when those updates are happening. I get notification messages directly here, and you can see what people are working on directly, what they've done. You'll get notifications before deadlines, 7, 14, or 30 days out. We're going to auto remind everybody about deadlines three days out. And then you also get some weekly emails generated. So you get to your office on a Monday morning, you're going to know what's happened over the past week as it relates to all the players that are contributing to the work at hand. So if you're a leader, maybe you unselect the boxes and you just want those weekly reports. That's one of the benefits of the system is here. You can kind of modify it based on your own workflows and kind of what works for you. And really key point of emphasis with this, guys, super configurable, if not customizable system here. So your language, your processes, this is a configurable workflow solution that we put in your hands and teach you how to use it, teach your clients how to use it, make sure everyone's comfortable in white glove fashion.
David, how was that for you, being a small team, but you had like part-time or interns also contributing, like the email notification? I'm sure that was probably pretty helpful for you.
Yeah, I mean, it was extremely helpful. So, we were a team of 2, but then we also had about 5 to 6 people who were working on interns who we gave essentially the ability to do a lot of coordinating for all of our contracts, for all of our partners. So ensuring that we were kept abreast of everything that was going on while we were working on higher level things. And so, knowing that either I've given out certain responsibilities and roles for them to do, and they're working on those throughout the week, or, if they've gone in to just make changes on their own, I'm able to track it and say, okay, well, that's expected. Something's unexpected. What actually is going on, and really going in to figure out, okay, well, this was updated, this was changed, that's correct. If something was incorrect, or, they even had an idea of something that as they were working on an account. So that way it wasn't always where they had to come to me, talk to me about it. They could sit there and say, hey, for this promotion, and insert in 3 or 4, updating tasks or whatnot. I can go in there and say, yeah, that's a great idea. Perfect. There you go. So really that back and forth allows you to to be right down there in the weeds of things. And then, as you get going, and partners are setting along the way, then you can sit there, like Chip said, go back in and, take off some of those notifications because you know that everything's all lined up and ready to go.
And David made such a good point here, guys. We've all been unpaid interns or paid interns and really trying to figure out how to get our foot in the door and become super valuable. And often it's, in the past, it's been paper pushing and doing, things that might not necessarily add a lot of value and resume, otherwise can get you a lot of experience that way. We're giving someone some direct digital operations experience in doing this, super actionable, and really kind of raises the bar on the experience that they would get with your team, having them interacting in a system like this. So we love creating those hero stories that can start from the intern level up to your executives that are really looking to make a name for themselves. So definitely a key theme here as we get into things. And kind of just shifting over from there, guys, you got your search bar, and then you've got your task bar over here, or your menu, if you will. I'm going to start on the sales side in terms of how this data comes into the system. So just know, there's integration possibilities. If you've got a separate CRM that you swear by, that data can flow in automatically, and this can be kind of the real-time action in the trenches of what's happening as it relates to your accounts, or it can live in here directly, as we're looking at here. So our system's cloud-based. This is a project management system, different structurally than a lot of CRMs out there in terms of fundamentals. And what we have the ability to do is kind of dynamically help manage everything in real time. So what you're looking at is we've got our collections, as you can see here. We've also got those line items that would fall under those collections. So digital content, here's our digital banner ad, of which you can kind of go above and beyond those static, CRM driven names that are hard for the clients to understand and manage. And looking at this, guys, and I'm just going to pick this one, for example, you can insert your rate cards. You can see where it's pending in terms of sales. You can see how many have been allocated. In this case, 17 out of 50. And then clicking on it, you'll see our task slider pop out here. And we've got the ability to not only log subtasks involved in getting this particular task done, but the actionable specs. Okay. So no more, clunky PDFs that touch on all the different specs possible. You can segment these and put them right here at the task level, along with any instructions. In this case, it's important to include traffic instructions if it's not going to run the entire season. Please provide proofs at the end of the season and at mid-season. So all that helpful information can live right here. You can see the partners that have this item. You can see where it's pending. You can also include the most beneficial example of the creative listed, which we can see circled right here. And no limits on files on here, guys, or file types, by the way. So we can manage some very large files and all types as well to kind of help you actively manage what's happening and when. And when it comes time to edit it, you click the pencil button. You change your description, you change your values or due date, that master due date. Click save, and then all you have to do is go over here to overwrite inventory on the three little dots and say that, I just updated the description. I'm going to go ahead and overwrite that. And that's the automation that's put into work. Every person that is attached to that digital banner ad has now been notified as to that change I made to the description. So no more bullet pointed emails that have to go out to update everybody. It's just been done automatically. So that's kind of this master inventory. Just know it's super easy to add to, super easy to export anything here, sort through what you need to. And kind of transitioning over to the sales side on the pipeline side, knowing how important sales is, we create the ability to create phases in here tied to your different deal phases. So in this case, it starts with prospect. We've identified a prospect. In this case, we've got some financials tied to it in Mercy Health. We're taking it all the way through pitched to close one. Close loss can be, a field as well in here. Just know this is completely configurable like everything else based on your different phases in the process. I'm saying that I pitched Budweiser, $6,000. We've got 2 line items in here. And we have the ability to go and pick line items right off the shelf here in terms of our inventory. say that I, went off and got them a dashboard here to add some extra signage. TV side, of course, so we want to make sure that it's visible on camera. Added it in. You can see it added to our list here. We're going to get a yield based on what we pitched each asset at. Net total, of course. So give you some metrics in terms of building these out. By the way, you can publish this contract. We can actually drop in it, your contract directly in here, as well as an account that's active in the system. And we can take what's boilerplated in your contracts and drop in those fields in there. So these particular asset values will add into that contract, make it a streamlined experience of which you can print it when it's ready to go, take your contract off the shelf, and save it. And then it's actually going to queue into a presentation. So one of our key features to this platform is digital presentations, knowing how much they're utilized and knowing the pains of having to do it, in Microsoft Office or what have you. But we can actually queue a presentation up directly that's going to tie into these assets at hand and that template that we just touched on as well.
Hey, Chip, I would just say a big part of this is that, when you have a larger team and you have 4 or 5 people going out and pitching to different partners, or if you're a smaller team, but you have assets going out to, 8 or different partners, potential partners, being able to really understand what's in that, what you have, what the quantity of assets you have available. If you have, if it's a field level LED, and you're looking at your overall inventory and you have 20 minutes left and you have out 12 different pitches, and in that 12 minutes, you have 12 different pitches, you have 18 minutes out, knowing that you only have 2 minutes left. So really allows you to do in real time, have an understanding of what's available, what you're pulling back, what you're putting in there. And if something comes available, being able to go back to that partner and say, hey, you really wanted 3 minutes. I was only able to give you 2, and now I'm able to do that. Or, hey, guess what? We were talking about this and that. Well, actually, that inventory was bought up, and so now we only have this available. So really being able to upfront and honest with that partner, which they're going to appreciate from the get-go.
That's a great point, David. Thanks for touching on that. And kind of moving to the account side, guys. So you got the ability to not only see what your accounts are and how they're performing based on everything that's in that contract and the progress we're making along the way, but also everybody internally has access to all accounts. So we can see across the board, all right, here's who we're working with. Here's how we're progressing. Here's who's on these accounts right now. So you can see pretty all-encompassing, giving some real-time dashboards on where we're at with things. If I just want to look at the active accounts, I can look at that list and see we're making some progress. We got a lot of work to do. So we got our work cut out for us here as we kind of get into things. So if I want to go and pick out one of these accounts here, just to show you from here, Chipotle account, you can see those collections get pulled through. Those tasks get pulled through. So again, no longer are they static items on a PDF contract. But by the way, that PDF contract can live here as well. And it's actually not on this partner, so it might be something we want to add here. But just know this becomes really an actionable environment where these are now kind of separate, segmented tasks here, of which we can move to activate on and make sure that everything is done on time, on delivery, justifiable in one place. So clicking on this dashboard, in our signage collection here, TV side, you can see here that David has been assigned this item here. We've got some subtasks involved in getting that job done. So we want to make sure it gets replaced in November. We want to make sure that we got a game day read lined up. We also want to make sure before we mark it as completed that we've gone ahead and attached those best proof of performance photos that we've gotten, on a game day or screenshotted or wherever they might come from. So beyond that, you can see the specs of this item. You can see the approved files marked with the thumbs up button here. This allows you to tag and really sort through things a lot easier. You've got proof of performances. So we can see that we've got 2 good ones here listed for this dashboard listed here. Again, no limit on files. You can have more files here that are important to get that job done. You can always export these as a group here into a zip, which would make it super easy to kind of streamline things that way. Comments. So if there's some back and forth that needs to happen about these, or maybe you got, an email off to the side that relates to this, you can plug that in here, not lose a step. It's matched the asset at hand, and it's going to come through as, related directly to, the context of this dashboard.
Yeah, I would say, I use this area as well as a replacement for that email. So rather than having to go into my email, sort by sender, and, go through, a myriad of conversations back and forth right here, Chip, if you scroll up a little bit, I can go from the get-go and say, every asset that's attached to this partner, here it is, go down, say, for the subtask, for example, oftentimes it's not just me who's working on the account. I have to work with marketing, I have to work with ticketing, I have to work in food and bev on a variety of things. And being able to put in there and say, in order to get to the actual fulfillment of this asset, these 5 things need to happen prior to that asset being fully activated upon, and then go ahead and checking those off. So that way I know when it actually comes down to it, I can say, boom, there we go. It's a one-stop shop, makes it really easy to do, and really allows me to get away from the clutter of my email of, multiple emails coming through on a daily basis that we're all dealing with. To really just focusing on that client and then be able to go out of it and go into the next one and really make sure that I'm being efficient with my time.
Another great point. And by the way, when it comes to sharing, it's as easy as going and plugging in that custom email of that user in the system. This will get blasted with all the right contacts directly to their email right from here. So trying to free you up from that clogged email inbox typically, to put everything in a simplified fashion in one place, as David kind of alluded to. Custom statuses, by the way, impacted, right? If this is something we can't execute because we don't have games this year or whatever the case might be, we can help draw that up to indicate, all right, we're going to have to add something in place of that and justify it on the back end or currently with our client. So helping account for everything that's happening. And again, super easy to export, be it a print summary where you can PDF this and it sends with live links, thumbnail images of the image, status of everything. So this can be sent via PDF. It can be printed. You can export to Excel. You can download everything into a zip and kind of go from there. And then, by the way, if we go to this overview page, this can really become where the rubber meets the road in terms of the partnership. You can see we've got some dashboards tied to performance on here, by the way, which can come up from the task level or otherwise. You can see that here we're accounting for what's been happening with COVID here in terms of added value delivered, the COVID impact, impacted asset value. So these are all kind of some configurable dashboards, but also you got the meat and the potatoes. How much are we paying for this partnership? Where is it coming from? Or in the fact, how much are we getting in from Chipotle in this case? And you can see that, all these fields can roll up and to give us, this 2.4 million impressions number coming from the task itself as well. So, super important when it comes to having everything in one place. Why did we sign it? What were the objectives here? But also the results side and bringing in that side of the picture, considering, we're all going up against the Facebook ads of the world where you get a buttoned up ROI almost instantaneously on a budget. So we've really got to work harder to justify these partnerships. And this becomes kind of the housing page of, everything we need to know about Chipotle, particularly as a partner with the Ducks.
Yeah, I would say that this page right here really allows me to be prepared to go on a meeting with like Hilary. I know that she's looking at the numbers, she's looking at stats, she's probably looking at the partnerships she has with me versus other organizations in town or in the market. And I need to make sure that I have a full understanding of what we're going to be presenting to them so that I can have that open and honest discussion with her and say, here's our successes, here's the areas we can work on, and here's our failures, and here's a plan moving ahead to make up for that area. So great example. A great example of all the things I need to have ready, because I'm sure she's going to come with some tough questions and I need to be able to answer them.
No doubt. And touches on Andrew's question earlier about permission controlling, right? So if you own your Trak instance, some of these fields can be shared externally. We'll touch on that a little bit more. It's whatever you want as a marketer, you want your clients to see. Otherwise, it's a great internal resource to know where you're at in terms of how it's performing based on the objectives and everything that went into it that way. So transitioning over to calendar, I know this is a favorite for David as well in his work in, utilizing this as a two-man department, of which you can touch on, I'm sure, a little bit more. But David, how did you go ahead and utilize calendar just in managing the game operations and presentation side, on a regular basis, how it compared to how it used to be done? What would you say there?
Yeah, we used to just operate off of a spreadsheet, not very efficient. Didn't update in real time or anything like that. So this area, it's a double-edged sword for us. I mean, it works in two different ways for us. So one is the partnership side, really being able to identify what the match is, what partners are activating it, not just my partners, but also, my coworkers and their partners. So I can see, okay, I have these 3 partners, there's these 2 other partners. Do I need to work with this other coworker I have because they have a halftime or a pre-match or a post-match activation going? And what are they doing? What am I doing? Can we somehow work together? Do we need to separate them out? Because possibly they're competitors because, the category doesn't have an exclusivity over it. But then really on the other side, as overseeing game day operations, being able to do the partnership side, but then also see, does ticketing have special events going on? Do they have large groups, hospitality that's going on in the area? Is marketing running some kind of promotions? And really getting a 30,000-foot view on everything that's going on during that specific match and how everything's going to be interacting with each other, and making sure that those different departments are actually communicating with each other to make sure that, 1, no one's stepping on each other's toes, 2, ensuring that they're working with each other when they can, and 3, that we're going to be as efficient as possible and keep that rolling, because at the end of the day, it's not just about what's on the field when it comes to matches, it's the entire experience, and we want to make sure our fans are enjoying themselves from the second they walk into the stadium to the second that they leave.
Absolutely. So helping, again, pull people out of reactive mode. I'm buried. I can only focus on this next game. Instead of that, you get the ability to work in one place on items, go ahead and check the box once it's done and you feel good about it, and move on to the next game. So strategic and proactive versus reactive is kind of what this calendar allows you to do from an operations perspective that way. And then speaking to that, we've got all kinds of reports, right? We know how important reporting is when it comes down to it. So first place I'm going to start is our task reports. So as you can probably see, the streamlining effect that's happening here, we've just pulled every task in the system onto this list right in front of me. So from here, if my job, part of it is not only managing accounts, but I'm also over digital, I can go and pick out the digital collection off this list, hit it, and I've got every digital task right in front of me. I don't have to leave this page to work on these. I can click on them directly. I can update the files, the statuses. I can export to Excel to get them, to the printer or to our social guy. So it makes it super easy to go and get the work done in one place and traffic it wherever it needs to, right? From here, which is going to be another common theme. So just know all kinds of ways to cut and splice this data by season, by collection, by account, by status, by person, and then all kinds of other ones too, right? So this is really where the rubber meets the road when it comes to those major efficiencies and how you can get this information presentable, exported, done in a hurry. So David's interns, I'm sure, played a lot into this this page as well when it comes to getting those proofs attached, especially.
Yeah, I think that this page right here really allows you to, when you learn your business and the ebbs and flows, here in St. Louis, we know that beginning of the season, a lot of the tasks are going to be that you're going to be working on are digital versus once the summer hits and then, early fall, it's going to be there. It's going to be a little bit heavier. And so therefore I can look at that task manager and essentially say, okay, overall, if I'm seeing a high number of tasks still haven't been completed in March and April, I'm feeling kind of comfortable because I know that's probably correct. That's correct. If that's slowly creeping into the summer months, then there's an issue there. We need to sit there and really dig into it, and then knowing that the back end of the actual scene is where a lot of it's going to hit. And then on top of that, like you said, breaking it down by, maybe you have someone who's in charge of all your radio and TV deliverables on your team. And so being able to look in there and say, at the beginning of the season, that first game is here, are all those tasks completed, because that's what's going to get you rolling, and then sliding over to, there's the social side. If there's this, there's that. So really being able to channel in and look at a specific task and know that, are those tasks being completed? If they're not being completed, what's going on? Staying on top of it. And then that way they're able to actually be activated and fulfilled upon, so that there are no surprises at the end of the day.
Fantastic point with that. Transitioning to the pulse reports, guys. Again, no surprises. Common theme, David just made here. Pulse report is formerly our executive report that really gives you a snapshot of performance in real time. Here's what's open. Here's what we're working on. Here's what's past due right now. How active is my team? By the way, we know how active every team member is. Every activity is logged, audit stamped, time logged. So how active are our partners in the system? By the way, you know how active those collaborators that we've included in are as well. And you know how engaged they are. So, and they're, by the way, getting these automated emails weekly that touches on these things. You know, where are we at with our partnership? What's happened over the past week? If we look at Chipotle here on our master list here, you can see activity numbers, file uploads, comments, client logins, etc. So if we click on this, we can get in the weeds and see that it was me doing a lot of the work. Cameron was in there earlier. We've got 3 people on the account here. So you really can kind of get a snapshot of what's happening in flight, and kind of becomes the hustle board for the services side, if you will, and how engaged your partners are in the mix as well. You know, so it tells you kind of where do we need to focus our attention? How's our activity doing compared to last month, or, you know, August in this case, and you kind of take it from there. So just showing you another example of a report here, custom dashboards. The importance of having your data all in one place is we're able to create things like this COVID report here. So again, making it kind of relevant to the times and what we're all dealing with right now. Here's what we couldn't deliver, undeliverable. So we're able to kind of map out the values there. Here's the added value that we provided to partners, which we consider almost make goods for this year, right? Based on our kind of definition in the system. Our balance is we've got basically about a quarter of the revenue for this year that we've got to make up and either refund or come up with a plan that's going to help the partner get happy about what we're getting them back in place of what we had to replace or couldn't deliver upon. So accounts wise, we can see Microsoft is the one that we really need to focus our attention on and make sure to get with them. Windstar, on the other hand, is doing pretty well in terms of, you know, relative scale, who got what. And then you can kind of see some breakdowns from here. Chipotle, David's account there, doing pretty well right now when it comes down to it comparatively. But we've got a hole to dig out of for Coca-Cola, as well as Gaviday Commons. So just the abilities to simply create some workable dashboards that you can put in front of a CFO, a CMO who's not in the weeds. We give you that ability to kind of create that hero status, if you will, and make things super presentable in real time. So dashboards.
Don't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to say, you know, when it comes to this value added, you know, undeliverable assets, this allows you also to, you know, when you're starting talking about renewals or upselling, to really figure out, you know, what value adds, what additional assets that you provide to that partner this year, whether it's because you had to make good for COVID or it's because you just had additional radio inventory for a match, you know, or additional TV inventory for a match, and be able to say, okay, you know what, we gave you this as an added value last year, this past season. You saw some success from it. Can we sit there and take this and now add it to your package moving forward for your renewal? And so that way, you know, you're doing a couple things. One, you're obviously, you know, increasing your sales. You're showing that partner that you're looking out for them in real time, and then you're also showing them that, hey, not only did we look out for you, but we also added some additional help, and we also added some additional exposure that you're reaping rewards for. And so this is why you should continue forward. So really looking at this as an overarching theme of, you know, oftentimes right now it's making good for COVID, but in the future it's you're making good for something that possibly didn't happen, or you had additional inventory that you're able to add value, and therefore you can use that to your advantage when you're going to pitch them for the renewal process as well.
And then last but not least, guys, we want to touch on recaps. And I know David has some thoughts in terms of recaps, how they've traditionally done in PowerPoint or what have you, before I kind of get into our digital presentation side. But what have you found, David, in doing recaps at the property side, MLS, USL, that process, pain?
Yeah, time is of the essence. So, you know, when you're originally in that account management, when you're looking at the account, really knowing that you're making sure you're staying up to date on the account, making sure you're attaching those proof of performances. If you have multiple photos, you know, checking off inside the account which one you want to use for the proof of performance, because oftentimes, you know, whether it's the match happens on a Saturday, you need to recap on a Monday or Tuesday to then continue forward. That allows you to do that middle of the season when you're having that mid-season recap. we were looking at having recaps for 75 partners. That's a range of partners who maybe have a couple signage, but then there's partners who have 20 to 30 assets in their account, and so therefore having to build out an entire presentation proposal oftentimes takes a lot of time out of your day. You're sitting there in PowerPoint trying to pick the right photo, trying to crop it down, working with your marketing team to say, hey, I really need a template background for this. Taking those impression numbers that you've been tracking for the entire year, putting those in, trying to make sure that you're accenting the right things. It takes time, and you want to sit there and do the best you can for each partner to put your best foot forward. And this allows it to be a one-stop shop. It really allows you to do that 30,000 foot view, and then just really go in if you need to tweak things every once in a while here or there. You're allowed to do that.
And to David's point here, guys, we don't longer have to wait till the end of the season and have an intern go through thousands of pictures to try to piece together something that's going to take weeks. The theme is no surprises right now. No surprise. Your clients are plugged in. You're giving them real-time updates, which is great. But we still need that extra level of presentability here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that template that marketing made for us. We're going to grab our partner in Chipotle. And we've got some options on when to generate slides. I'm just going to go ahead and, you know what? I'm going to take proofs or files attached to a task in this case, just for the example, click save. So compare, those couple weeks of doing recaps to, when you have everything in one place, being able to go and hit the play button and deliver this link live to anybody with live media, like the highlights from the season in the form of this video that we can play here and embed from YouTube, to what actually happened with the partnership this year. So here's that ad that ran. Here's the dialogue behind it. Here's the impressions and the value delivered that they can come through from your insights fields there, all the way through the list here. So these images can be downloaded locally. There's all kinds of file types here if you want to kind of tweak these up and make it your own here. But this can be delivered to anybody and make it super easy to get it there in the process, right? So you can see here's our dashboard. Here's how it performed. Here's when we ran it. All those key pieces of information that are usually saved somewhere, if you're good, can be pulled directly in here seamlessly, super efficiently, etc. And, by the way, it becomes super easy to edit from here. So be it the name, the slide template, the slide itself, the description, super easy to kind of configure this based on, making your tweaks to get it out the door in a quick fashion, but certainly going to set you apart from those PowerPoint decks that are typically going out or what have you. By the way, some analytics with that too. So who viewed it, how long, great sales tool to know how engaged the partner is when I send them a link out that's going to touch on everything we did this year. So if it hasn't been viewed that you might have a problem there. You want to make sure to get in front of them. But by the way, this is printable, right? So if you have someone that really likes getting a hard copy, you can go and actually create a PDF or a printable version just by clicking this kind of print button up here. So that's kind of the icing on the cake. Can be used for presentations, recaps at any point in time. Super kind of easy to work through. And again, like everything else, we kind of hold hands through the process to help you get it where you need to get it and make it actionable. And with that said, guys, it's a good time to transition over to the brand and agency side of the fence. Flip the tables here. My friend Hilary Goldberg is going to help me out with that as we transition into our WinStar story here. So in this case, brand or agency purchases Trak. They're having all the same pains that we know in the space. Typical, undermanned, understaffed, under-resourced, or they need some help on results and justifying these spends that all these accounts are doing in terms of performance-wise. So login, same story there. Logging in as Heather Collins, brand director for WinStar. And from here, you're going to get a similar view internally. And Hilary, why don't you help me kind of guide the story based on your experience working on the agency side on behalf of a brand?
Absolutely. Well, you guys did a really good job diving in super deep on the team side. And I will say a lot of those same functionalities apply, right? Like we're all kind of working on the same things. We're just on two different sides of the coin. So, right here, we have kind of a summary of all of the accounts and all of the tasks that you have in these various accounts. So Chip, if you don't mind, just hopping into the accounts tab really quick. There you go. And let's look at all accounts first. So same sort of story, me and my team actually brought Trak on because we were a very small team, drinking from a fire hose. And the difference between being on the brand side and the agency side is we have a lot of different partnerships with a lot of different entities, right? And that means competing deadlines, crossover seasons, so it's just a different kind of perspective in terms of all the things that we're juggling at the same time. And we have the same benefit of being able to go in and look at, okay, what are all of the accounts that we have? What are all the team partnerships that we have that are currently running? What is the status of them? How many assets or tasks are currently outstanding? And it really just creates that, again, centralized platform where we don't have to go in and out of, anywhere from 17 different spreadsheets or more, because you've got that many NFL and MLS and NHL partnerships and beyond, right? And then so from here, because we've got a small team, or if you have a larger team and you're able to divvy things up to various members, you can go into your My Accounts tab over on the left-hand side, and you can look at specifically, okay, what are the accounts that I am responsible for, and what are the accounts that I need to make sure we are on track with, pun intended. So it again just gives you this really great holistic view. Where are we with each of these partnerships? And if you want to go ahead and let's go back to the Mighty Ducks, let's click into the Mighty Ducks and see where we are with that partnership. We know that we have several tasks that are incomplete, several tasks that are complete. We have deadlines that are assigned, and we also have, assigned users for whose responsibility it is. Either we need a proof of performance, or do we need the actual creative from our client partner? Being on the agency side, it's really our responsibility to be the steward between the relationship between our team partners and our clients, our brand clients. And this really gives us that opportunity to create the collaborative environment between all parties and make sure that we are fulfilling our contracts and our assets on time, making sure it's correct. A lot of times we have competing creative in different markets. I don't want to say competing creative, but different creative in different markets or different creative on different timelines, and really making sure that all of that is buttoned up. And similarly, Chip, if you want to click into the 30-second radio spot, here's a good example of a task that, we've got a deadline associated with. It's assigned to a partner. We have our subtasks in there. We have to update when we've got things in place, and that looks like even the subtask needs to be updated. The great part about this is that once we enter a task, you have the ability to duplicate, right? So not everything is manual. The thing that we found really valuable at the beginning when we set up Trak for our agency and for our client was the fact that your team was really able to kind of help us import some of those initial assets and contracts and really get us started with a framework. And then we have the ability to go in and customize, give all of our partners access, so that really what we did is we gave them a timeline and we set them up with training. We set all of our team partners up with training of this is how Trak works. This is, the platform that we are going to be using from now on. And if you scroll down within there, we also, in addition to asking for the appropriate specs and deadlines for these assets, we also asked for proofs of performance and how they performed. So this is very similar to how we had our client configured, we had a monthly breakdown of asset performance. How many impressions did we get from this particular asset? And that way we can really monitor, is it performing the way we thought it would? When we get to either mid-season or end of season review, is this something we need to take a look at? And so, yeah, go ahead and type in, let's say we got 50,000 impressions in January, right? And those are our digital impressions. Maybe our radio spot, ran on streaming radio. And we can go from there, and those numbers all roll up. So it's just a really great area. And actually, Chip, go ahead and scroll down.
Oh.
Sorry, I'm going to have you stay in the task really quickly.
No worries.
I was just going to piggyback on what David said about the ability to collaborate within each of these tasks, right? With the comments. And we don't have any comments in this particular task right now, but we can say, please see impression numbers from January, right? And you have that dialogue. Everything is time and date stamped, which is huge, again, because it saves us from having to shift through emails. When did that get posted? It all lives in one place. And, we can collaborate in this central area, which just kind of saves everybody an extra step.
Hilary, what did you do before Trak? Like, how would you manage all this? Because it seems kind of crazy.
It was email, and it was tough. Like, it was really tough. We would get different spreadsheets or they weren't all spreadsheets. From one partner, we would get a PDF breakdown of here's all of your assets and here are all the specs. And PDFs are tough because it's not always easy to copy and paste in and out of a PDF, right? Some partners would supply us with a spreadsheet. Others, it would be a Word document. So we were getting all of these requirements of here are your assets. And a lot of times partners, and you can't blame your partners, right? Like, to David's point, he's dealing with 75 different partners. Sometimes they've got a book of all of their assets. We might not get every single asset, right? So a lot of these breakdowns are not specific to our contract. And so then, it's the added step of sifting through, okay, what are the assets that we are getting? What are the assets we need to be paying attention to? What are the associated deadlines? Whereas here, we have a platform where we can add the asset in as a task, submit a comment, you assign your team partner. So I'm asking David from St. Louis to come in and say, I can add a comment and said, David, please provide specs and please provide us with the deadline by which you need this radio spot or you need this signage creative and what file format. And then we can upload it directly into the system, and he can go in immediately and download it off that same system and just put in a brief comment. Hey, thanks, got it. It'll be running on this date. We'll provide proof of performance after the fact, right? So it just, the spreadsheets and the emails can be overwhelming at times.
I don't know how you could go from using Trak to going back. like when you're looking for a new position, this needs to be like a negotiating, thing, because
it's a bullet point on my resume.
I'm not doing it.
It's one of those things where I do it. It's a question that I ask now. It's literally that a question that I ask now in terms of, what tools do you use to manage your partnerships, and do you have a tool that you use? Because if not, I highly recommend one, because I saw the change immediately. And it was just like being able to, a lot of times we all feel like we're drinking from fire hoses at various points in time. And it was finally being able to kind of lift my head up out of the fray and really focus, again, as Chip said, focus on the decision making about, hey, is this partnership working? Not just trying to compile the data.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So speaking of which, let's look at some of the data.
Absolutely. So, Hilary, that was fantastic. And just touching on this overview page, which you mentioned before, right? All those key things that are kind of proprietary to your agency can live right here at this account level. What's our relationship with a property on a 10 scale? What are the objectives here? What's our reach potential? By the way, we touched on impressions. They're coming from all these different areas. We've got them broken down by month as well. So having properties come in and input, their numbers and relate to the conversations, sure going to help them come renewal time, comparatively. So key point of emphasis there, in kind of touching on these overview pages and how it relates collaboratively. And then reports wise, Hilary, I know you're hoping to get here to this insights level of reporting here. This basically becomes where everything can be compared in one place, right? This is very hard to find from an agency perspective, like having everything in a central place that you can compare and contrast strategically. So why did we sign this partnership? What are our objectives with this one? What's our reach? How about breaking down the impression numbers across the board here and how they compare? So you can see how the Orioles are doing compared to the Ducks. So that we kind of create that landing spot where you can really quarterback and strategically analyze and make those good decisions in flight, sooner rather than later.
Right. And I just want to jump in and say, like, Chip, to your point, you can restrict access to these pages, right? Like the partners that you onboard are only going to see information related to that partnership, right? So really the only people that are going to be able to look and compare at the health of your various partnerships and your various sponsorships are the people that you assign, which can either be the agency only, or if you want to extend that access directly to your partners, or if you'd rather deliver it to them in a presentation, you can have a little bit more control there. I'll say it was really useful allowing our clients to have that access because it gave them the real-time opportunity to view how each of these partnerships was performing. So that's what we chose to do, but that's not to say that that's the only option.
And it can work effectively internally only, right? You can choose to include external folks whenever the time is right. So you have that flexibility, but you also have the backing of like, hey, we're on our stuff right now. We can justify it. I can screen share and show where we're at. I can print a report for you, to show like, hey, guys, we're pretty indispensable when it comes down to it in the mix here. And then branching over, we've created an index here. So by popular demand, we've created kind of the self-scoring system where we enable, our clients to go in and stack rank their partnerships. Right? If you imagine a line cutting right down the middle here, on the right, you're getting great value for the dollar. On the left, you're getting poorer value for the dollar. So we've got some partnerships that are indexing pretty well compared to costs here, but we allow you to kind of go in and score things on a 10 scale and come up with kind of this gridded, way of representing how well the value, how great the value is we're getting across the board for our partnerships. And, a couple different ways you can skin the cat and do this a few times and get the formula right for you, but something that becomes super actionable, right? And pulling things out of, the subjective means to being, super objective, right? In terms of the metrics involved. So,
yeah, it's a super helpful tool, again, just to look at your entire portfolio and be able to see your entire portfolio in one spot and just gives you the ability to really dig deeper and say, okay, what do we need to pay more attention to? What do we need to maybe reevaluate? And what is hitting it out of the park?
And then we touched on these configurable dashboards, but just think about having the ability to create these quick reports and visuals. What are we spending this year? Where are we spending it at with our charitable investment, right? So you can touch on those, charitable partnerships or local stuff as well in the system to really kind of, give you some good visuals that, again, you can put in front of the CFO, CMO, internally or externally, when it comes down to it, to help tell that full story, right? Data in all one place. We want to make it presentable for you.
And actually, Chip, if you don't mind hopping into the task or the pulse report, this is super valuable on the agency side as well. We were really spearheading the adoption of Trak on both our client side and our partner side, right? And there's always a little bit of an adoption and a transition period. And so this was very helpful to us when we onboarded Trak and onboarded it to all of our partners, because we conducted, various trainings. We got to see, okay, who's playing around, who's getting used to it. And then for those of our partners who maybe weren't as active, it allowed us to proactively reach out to them and say, do you have any questions? What can we help you with? How can we make this easier for you to use? Because this is now where we are needing you to provide performance data and really all of your asks or needs from us as well. And so it was a great way for us to, again, proactively kind of push that onboarding process forward.
And then when it comes to the collaborators themselves, we want to make sure you guys get a feel for what their experience is like, right? It's great internally, and there's tons of value in that. But the true abilities really get shined upon when you get your clients in the system, right? Which is what we're looking at. We've got Gordon Bombay, famed coach and executive from the Mighty Ducks, now interacting, right, directly with Heather on the brand side. You can see what Gordon's experience is like on the flip side of things, right? When he is a collaborator in the system, he gets the ability to, make sure to keep up on deadlines and statuses and uploads, be it the creative that's going back and forth, the proofs he can upload in here, comments, all the same kind of instantaneous notifications and utility. He's got that ability here. And to Hilary's point, they were having property partners go in and upload their metrics directly. So, they can come in, and if you get them editor access, right, which is not by default, it's something that you feel comfortable with. I'm going to give my properties the ability to go and update their numbers. Gordon can go in and make sure that he represents that we actually got 45,000 impressions for January. You'll see that update being made, and you'll see it right here listed there, as well as you can give them access to that overview page or bits and pieces of it, right? So in this case, he's only seeing the performance data that was logged, and there's a lot that's kind of been held off for the sake of this collaboration. But just know, you have the ability to share what you want. It streamlines their lives, makes them a little bit easier. And by the way, this is how we get a lot of customers, because they haven't had an experience like this. They want to find out how they can do more. They like what they've got, and they want to figure out, how do we get this in our hands? And then we've kind of covered the collaboration side pretty well, but just wanted to give you guys a view into that. And with that being said, Andrew, are there any questions? I know we've kind of opened up the gates there, but anything that you want to know, or anyone in the audience might want to know, just based on what we had touched on, or anything else?
Well, I mean, I just had a few just from kind of going through it, and you might have said, but I've got all these screens up right now, and I'm like a little kid. But can you assign a task to more than one person?
Great question. So the idea right now, we've been asked for that feature, by the way, and we take every request seriously and try to gauge how beneficial is it for the Trak community. So in terms of trafficking, and Hilary, I know this was going to be a point too that we wanted to make, assigned tasks. You want to talk through workflowing, the assigned tasks and how that generally works?
So right now the functionality is one user per task, but to be honest, that to me, it depends on every organization, right? In our organization, we found that to be a little bit easier, right? Because then there's no assumption that someone else is going to pick it up or someone else is going to do that task. You know who is responsible for it. And then once you make that change, you can then reassign, or the editor can go in and reassign, or say that no one is assigned to it. It also, this screen is great because it allows you to look at what are the tasks that are specifically assigned to you. So what is on my plate to run through? I know it was extremely valuable for my client who's in charge of providing all of our creative, because on a weekly basis, he would go through and look at his tasks, and he would look at the deadlines and see who was attached to it, and he would carve out a chunk of his week and just say, okay, I got all of those done. I'll check back in next week. And so it provided a one-stop shop for him to be able to cross things off the list.
And Andrew, to your point, basically in constructing this workflow solution based on needs and nuances internally, we can define the phases here, right? So here's your description of the status, right? So if Heather's assigned this particular step, Heather can go get the work done, indicate that she has gotten the work done, whatever that might be, and go and reassign it from there. So Mark, now it's in Mark's hands. Everybody that's on the account still getting notified, right? So if you're on an account directly, you're getting every notification unless you unselect that. And then we can kind of traffic things that way. We're also building functionality right now that allows you to basically tag, if you're over everything digital, you can be assigned, everything digital, and that will automatically be populated to your assigned tasks by collection, right? And by these kind of subsections that we have. So there's more complex, scenarios coming from a workflow perspective, but just know it's pretty easy to get things that were where they need to, and we help you kind of create that internal workflow through all these different means.
Yeah, well, it definitely makes sense. How about going back to the on the property side? You talked a little bit about like a presentation, and I get the presentation, end of season recap type stuff. More in the beginning, is that kind of like, your part of your pitch to a potential sponsor? Is that kind of what I was getting from that?
Yeah, absolutely, right.
Okay.
So we presented on the recap functionality and how easy that is. In a similar sense, from a pitch perspective, you can go and we basically can take that pitch deck that you've got and add a partner to it similarly. And what it's going to do, it's actually going to pull from that inventory template that we've got, right, that we started the conversation on, and it's going to pull these associated files in directly. So if you want the best example of what a super banquet looks like, you've got an image that's going to pull in directly, along with the description. That's going to enable you to kind of pitch the best quality inventory or what you're putting in front of them directly and customize it as you may for that particular partner.
I'll also add to that, I think that the one thing we like to do is once we bring a partner on board, like to kind of do like a best practices and showing them examples of partners who are doing great work when it comes to if it's signage, if it's, if it's a radio spot, if it's whatever it is, an activation on site, and being able to sit there and say, okay, create a presentation that has best practices and here are the assets that are examples of those, and put it all together, then allows you to sit there and go to one, a partner you're potentially pitching, or two, a partner who you've just closed, and you're saying, okay, now we're getting down to the groundwork and actually going to figure out what it's going to look like. Here are great examples that you can look back on as you're creating your stuff to say, this is awesome. Or, here's areas of improvement. Here's something you've done in the past. Here's something another partner has done that's kind of similar, but how they've made it work for, that specific sport, which may be, how a client works in the soccer space may not be the same as it works in football or hockey or basketball of some sort.
What's the setup time? Like how long? I mean, it looks pretty in depth. Is it, take a couple months to get set up, or what's the process like for that?
So my friends on the call can speak to this, but we take a super hands-on approach right off the bat. You get us your data, make sure it's clean, it gets imported in 48 hours. You've got a live environment, and then week to week, we're making progress every week. So literally, short end of the stick, we could super fast track it and you could be done in 2 weeks, but generally 3 or 4 weeks. You can introduce clients on that 4th week and we move to optimization from there. So at no means do we want this to be shelfware for you, but it's going to be based on, your own pace of like, all right, guys, here's how we do this. We're moving on to this next week, so just kind of putting those action steps together, which we'll do in the system with you. To make sure, all of our clients are best in class. We've had clients win a ton of awards at the peer level, and we really get proud of that. So, we don't want stragglers. We don't want folks that, get freaked out about it, but we want to know, like, all right, where are you guys struggling along the way too?
Well, I think just from kind of hearing what you're saying and just talking to you before, it's really saving so much time. It's almost like you're losing money not having it. I don't know. Is that kind of accurate, Hilary and David? I mean, to me, like hearing what you're saying and knowing now, again, in my role, I typically am not having to deal with all the details of this. So it was always somebody else. So having them do the spreadsheet or the tracking, I can feel their pain, but I can't feel their pain.
It's another body on your team. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it's. And for me, as a manager leader, I want to be able to get the data and get it quickly. And that's kind of what I like about this is I can go in and, I can look at, the reports whenever I want or get the automatic emails. So instead of saying, hey, is the spreadsheet updated? Can you send me the latest copy? So, you always see stuff fall through the cracks. I think it's great. I think too, just feedback, Chip, is I got a lot more out of this demo than before. And maybe it's because I'm more focused on it, or having Hilary and David kind of reiterate from, not Mr. Corporate, and
Sure.
I thought it was very helpful. So thanks guys for participating.
Thank you. Yeah, this was awesome. We appreciate it. Hopefully valuable for everybody. Maybe you can pick up a few things that you can do if, working with someone like us is not possible. But in case it is, guys, we know everyone's feeling the pains right now. So you can see our friend David here quoted on this one sheeter we've done. But, we're doing 2020 on track, so we don't have a lot of time left in the year. But if there's a way for you to get this done, and we've got a package for everybody at every budget, sign it. We'll get you launched early, and you can be off to the races before that new year comes and justifying the work along the way, right? There's never going to be an era like this when it comes to defending your turf and your work. And, that's why we're in business, is to give you that insurance blanket to say, hey, we've done a lot more than we, signed on for, and we can justify it. So, just know that we're here for you. We want to thank you guys for all attending. Hopefully this was valuable. We'd love to become an extension of your teams. You got my information here, co-founder, CRO, relationships and revenue, as well as our participants here in David and Hilary. Definitely reach out to them. If you could use an expert on the digital operations side who really knows how to make it count and drive small teams to big results, don't hesitate to reach out, even with questions. I realize I spelled Hilary's last name wrong, but it's Goldberg with a G here.
You need a V on mine as well. Vedder DV at Gmail.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Sorry about that.
Redo.
I know, right? Start it from the top, guys.
Okay. So
there we go. He's editing.
Try that again.
That's what I'm talking about.
We
try can do this again. Live all day long.
Is it correct now, guys? Sorry about that. But anyway, thank you all. We hope, continued wellness and luck with you in terms of getting back to normalcy. If there's anything any of us can do, even if it's just informal and questions or thoughts or who's doing what or how do we approach this, we want to be great resources for you. So don't hesitate.
Yeah, well, thanks, Chip, Hilary, and David. It was fun to do our first live demo on here. I'm excited. We got another one coming up next Tuesday with Spinzo. So that's going to be a fun one. But if you need help getting a hold of Chip, Hilary, or David, feel free to reach out to me as well. But thanks again, guys. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe.
Have a good one.